let's get started with everyone's favorite drunkard and alleged rapist, Pete Hegseth, a Fox News anchor who is slated to become the next Secretary of Defense. Since the change of the Department of War into the Department of Defense, there has never been a Secretary of Defense that leads the second largest governing body on the planet, the Department of Defense, the Pentagon. There has never been a person who has not been tasked with like managing more than 3 million people, that has adequate managerial background, or at least like super high levels of military experience. This is about to be the first time in American history where we have someone who is truly unqualified for the position. Truly. And I'm not like a liberal institution defender whatsoever, but I simply look at this as a organization that hires as a jobs program, probably the most effective government's jobs program, even though the output is not great, as you guys know. I've criticized it many times. The very fact that the second largest governing body in the United States following Walmart is going to be managed by a man who has no experience running any business whatsoever is pretty crazy. For all the talks that Republicans have about DEI hires, it seems like this is also a DEI hire. The difference, on the other hand, for the Republicans is that their DEI is if you're a bad guy who has been alleged of doing sexual assaults and is known as a drunkard, then that's the type of DEI we like. We want to make sure we have old alcohol. Well, Pete's not old, but like we want to make sure we have white men who are alcoholics who are doing sexual assaults, Mad Men style. That's the DEI. From DEI hire to DUI hire, the Department of Defense is going places. Oh my Lord. I don't even want to think about what's going to happen in foreign American military bases like Okinawa and in South Korea as well, when Pete Hegseth makes it legal to run over people after drinking and driving on the base. Think about the American military and the sexual assault problem that they have internally, and also the sexual assault problems that they have on foreign military bases. Great guy to have in that regard. Anyway, that's just one of the most minor aspects of this. Let's take a look at the larger story now.
First Senate confirmation hearing for the president-elect's cabinet nominees is underway this morning. The man in the hot seat is Pete Hegseth, Trump's choice to be defense secretary. Scott.
This is one of the things, of course, that he wants to just completely stop is women in combat positions, which, of course, if you don't understand like what the military's major problems are, you're like, whoa, why are women in combat positions? It's like they don't lower the testing standards for women to be in combat positions. That just means you got a bunch of ladies who are capable of carrying 100 pounds of gear around. There's significantly less of them in comparison to the men in those combat positions, but that still means that they, pass the standards. So just cutting them out of combat positions is just cooking the military for no reason at a time when the American military has a significant problem getting new recruits. Yeah, of course men fail those testing standards as well. The standards are still the same, though. That's my point. It's just like I'm not making an argument for more female war criminals, okay? That's not what I'm saying at all. What I'm simply stating is that even if the American military makes certain decisions as the largest governing body, the largest governing body, the largest hiring body in the federal government, they're doing that specifically because they have areas of need. Okay. They're not doing that because they want to market the military so that like people go, oh, the American military is woke, when they're actually executing 14-year-old brown children overseas. They're doing that because they're like, we literally need people to go out and execute 14-year-old brown children overseas. That's the reason why they do this. And ultimately, they don't actually lower the standards. They just have the same standards. Some women are allowed to, some women are able to qualify for said standards. And that's it.
McFarland is on Capitol Hill with the latest. Scott, good morning. What can you tell us?
There is no doubt this will be a long day of questioning. Pete Hegseth will be grilled about allegations of
Army eases fitness test standards for women and older troops. Yeah, this was, once again, done because of a recruitment crisis. But in terms of combat positions, they still have to do the jobs. The change, however, will only affect the regular fitness test soldiers take annually. Qualifying for certain Army jobs, particularly more demanding combat positions or specialties such as Ranger School, will continue to require that everyone, regardless of age and gender, must pass the same fitness standards. Oh, wow. Wait, hold on. Did Chatter just come in here and hit me with the headline of a news story without reading the whole news story? My bad, dog. Yeah, you got real excited to be like, Hasan, I'm here to cook you. I know. If you can read the headline, you can read 2 paragraphs down from the headline, man. And also, make no mistake, if the Army does actually lower its physical fitness standards to let in more women or let in older people or whatever, they're doing that because they have a hard time recruiting. They're not doing that because they want to be woke. The military is not a woke institution. Please. How have we arrived at such a permanently identity politics focused brain rot in this country that people look at the American military and go, that's an institution that is woke right now? What do you think the major role and responsibility of the American military is? It's called American Empire, okay? That's what they do. There is no wokeness in this process, okay? It's like saying Jeff Bezos is a socialist. You're out of your dang mind, okay? It blows my mind. But yeah, across the board, they're easing fitness test standards because they're having a hard time recruiting. But when it comes to like ranger positions, they're not going to be like, all right, yeah, you can just be a ranger because you're a woman now. That's not how that works. You clearly didn't pre-watch the confirmation hearing. Apparently the military is woke now. Oh, nice. Can you mute Mike too? Oh, damn. Thank you for calling that out. I didn't even realize. All right, let's watch. I'm going to go pee real quick.
Unequivocally denied. But this first of many Senate confirmation hearings for Trump nominees could be the most contentious. Pete Hegseth, a war veteran and former Fox News host, got a show of support Monday from Republican Senator Tommy Tuberville and more than 100 Navy SEALs and veterans in Washington.
I'm 110% behind Pete Hegseth.
But he's going to get a much tougher reception at his confirmation hearing today from Democrats on the Senate Armed Services Committee, who are expected to question Hegseth about allegations he abused alcohol and engaged in sexual misconduct with a woman at a hotel in California in 2017. Allegations he's denied.
The matter was fully investigated, and I was completely cleared.
Democrats are pushing for access to the FBI's background check on Hegseth. So far, as is tradition, that information's only been shared with committee leaders.
I'm told that they may well not have interviewed his ex-spouses or the accuser. I think that is a gap in the FBI report, if true.
Democratic Senator Tammy Duckworth, an Iraq war veteran, also intends to question Hegseth's experience.
My focus really is going to be, can he actually do this job? Or is this job far, far, far too big for this person?
And while Hegseth can be confirmed without Democratic votes, Republicans hold a slim 3-seat majority, meaning every GOP senator is critical. Republican Joni Ernst of Iowa, a combat veteran and survivor of sexual assault, will be among those asking questions today, who hasn't committed yet to vote for Hegseth. Hegseth's confirmation hearing could be a marathon. There are 27 members of the Senate Armed Services Committee, each of whom will get several minutes to question Hegseth. And there are more hearings to come this week, including for Trump's nominees for Homeland Security Secretary and U.S. Attorney General.
Scott, thank you.
Thank you, Senator Sullivan.
Thank you,
Senator
Mr.
Kane.
Thank you, Mr. Hegseth. I'm looking forward to this opportunity to talk. I want to return to the incident that you referenced a minute ago that occurred in Monterey, California in October 20.
It's even more funny to institute a new PT test, which is much harder to get people out, and unify the requirement. I got out right before that happened. Ultimately, the hearing is inconsequential to his appointment. Yes, this is just I mean, there was a point in time when these sorts of hearings could make or break a person and cook an appointment. But nowadays it's just, I mean, come on, we live in a post-Trump universe, and even before, even in a pre-Trump universe, it has these sorts of meetings have been relatively inconsequential. Clarence Thomas comes to mind. It's I would say it's more consequential for Democrats who will abide by norms and standards. It's just historically less consequential for Republicans who don't really care. If you remember the famous, Robert Bork, I guess, but also the famous case of Clarence Thomas is the famous case of Clarence Thomas is basically the exact opposite, right? Like, Clarence Thomas had a tremendous number of misgivings and misdeeds, including sexual harassment, bestiality, like enjoying bestiality and regularly explaining that he enjoys specific types of bestiality to other people around him. And yet he became a Supreme Court justice. How do people not know this still at this point? Clarence Thomas likes horse porn, chat. That's right. He also sexually assaulted and sexually harassed numerous people, very famously. Joe Biden actually kind of defended him when he was in charge of the Senate Judiciary Committee in his appointment and oversaw his appointment. So these are things to take note of, and it was many years ago. All right. Veterans, including Greg Stoker, interrupt Hegseth session post by Pink. Yeah, I saw. Anyway, let's continue with the Pete Hegseth talks.
2017. At that time, you were still married to your second wife, correct? I believe so. And you had just fathered a child by a woman who would later become your third wife, correct? Senator, I was.
Communism isn't necessarily a good thing. Since World War II, we've consistently progressed as a civilization. We should be careful not to be blind to what got us here and what worked. Yeah, no, you're right. Totally. No, definitely. I'm so scared that big bad communism is going to magically happen. It's actually communism that ruined the planet, and certainly not finance capital and the fact that capitalism won the Cold War. America won the Cold War and destroyed the planet in the process and continues to destroy the planet or supercharge that destruction. Yeah. Are you drinking a Monster Energy? I certainly am. Kaya, baby, you know what to do. Place. Place. That's crazy. I do love looking at I do love looking at the impending doom of complete climate collapse, wars all around the world, and a complete domination of capitalism. As Fukuyama once famously said, the end of history. Okay? the end of neoliberalism, permanent neoliberalism, as American capitalism is the global hegemon. And yet people still look to all of these problems and go, oh, that's the fault of, you know what? Communism. That's right. Yeah, you're right. For me, this is akin to saying it's actually wood elves that are responsible for all the failures in your life, okay? It must be the duendes that are responsible. Meanwhile, the duendes-loving person basically handed off his party and control of Mexico to his female successor, Claudia Sheinbaum, whose popularity has only grown. So maybe duendes are real, and maybe they're only doing positive things. But I digress. I've completely sidestepped from this conversation. Let's get back to everyone's favorite rapist drunk guy, Pete Hegseth, who will be running the military.
Falsely charged, fully investigated, and completely clear.
Bro, get over the duende shit. AMLO doesn't even believe in them that much is such a funny thing to say about the former leader of Morena and former leader of Mexico. Like, he doesn't believe in them that much is such a funny take to say. He doesn't believe in them that much, bro. Chill. He just believes in them only a little bit. Listen, I'd much rather have a guy who believes in duendes that also expands the welfare state, okay, than a guy who is hiring television personalities whose parents have openly said, you're a rapist and bad to women. I'm so upset with you. Get help, to run the American military, okay?
Cleared.
So you think you were completely cleared because you committed no crime? That's your definition of cleared? You had just fathered a child 2 months before by a woman that was not your wife. I am shocked that you would stand here and say you're completely cleared. Can you so casually cheat on a second wife and cheat on the mother of a child that had been born 2 months before, and you tell us you are completely cleared? How is that a complete clear?
Senator, her child's name is Gwendolyn Hope Hegseth, and she's a child of God, and she's 7 years old.
And she's a child of God. She's a child of God. Owned. Tim Kaine in the membrane, Tim Kaine in the brain. Yeah. Put that in your brain, Tim Kaine.
She was, and you cheated on the mother of that child less than 2 months after that daughter was born, didn't you?
Those were false.
By the way, let's just say Pete Hegseth is a repeater of this offense. It's so funny because, like, look, as you guys know, I'm not exactly a firm and committed believer in any religion whatsoever. Okay, make no mistake. Although I was, culturally raised Muslim, grew up in a Muslim country, I have some of those cultural remnants. I am Muslim. Okay. I will say this. If God is real and Christianity is correct, virtually every single outspoken Christian is going to hell permanently. So at moments like this, I always think to myself, I cannot wait. I hope it's real. By my assessment, I have done very little to offend God by the rules of any of the three Abrahamic religions, with the exception of eating pork and drinking alcohol from time to time. But those are minor offenses, in my opinion. I think that, this sort of stuff, hurting people consistently, seems like that's a much larger issue, I'm just saying, you're going to hell, dog. You don't believe in any of the things that you espouse. You just don't believe in it. You must not. It makes no sense. I'm lame. I hope hell is a school where these people learn, not where they suffer for eternity. That is lame. But I get that.
False charges. Well, no, fully investigated, and I was completely cleared. And I am so grateful for the marriage I have to this amazing woman behind me.
You've admitted that you
I think attacking him for his infidelity is not going to change anyone's mind. They should focus on his incompetence. I think that this is a full-throated, multiple angle attack, and that's why they're talking about his infidelity, because it pisses him off and it puts him on the back. It puts him on the back foot, and also, for the record, for a lot of people, that kind of stuff is what matters. In this day and age, it really doesn't, I guess. It is pretty funny that you're talking to a military man about infidelity, by the way, because I feel like you can't fully be a part of the American military if either your wife at home has not cheated on you, or if you haven't cheated on her when you're overseas. So infidelity is the name of the game here. What is this? Maximum penalty for extramarital sexual conduct. A conviction. Infidelity also leads. Oh, here's the counter argument. Okay, here's a relatively. Here's a normal argument you could make under normal circumstances, even though we don't live in a normal world, and I will tell you why. So infidelity is technically a risk. Okay, infidelity is a risk, just like alcoholism is a risk. It's a matter of national security because it opens you up to blackmail. Okay, technically, although it's laughable to assume that anyone will actually be penalized for infidelity and adultery or whatever. Wait, what? That's a stupid take. As adultery is a charge in the U.S. MJ law followed by all military and they're punished for it. Stupid ass take, bro. You are, oh my God, dude. I'm explaining to you what the reasons as to why they have such laws. And I'm explaining to you the reasons as to why they ask these sorts of questions. Okay? That's the same reason why Brett Kavanaugh's alcoholism was brought forth as well. And his gambling debt was also somewhat discussed, often not as discussed as it should have been, because they somehow went away, the gambling debt that Brett Kavanaugh had when he was in his Supreme Court appointment hearings. Now, you haven't even let me explain why infidelity is technically a crime that can get you dishonorably discharged. It is because if you engage in infidelity, you can be blackmailed. Okay? That's the number one problem. It is considered a security risk. Gambling is infidelity is considered a security risk. Gambling is considered a security risk. Okay? Alcoholism and other vices such as that are considered security risks for numerous different reasons. Someone could just like give you alcohol, have you spill stuff, state secrets or whatnot. Large amounts of debt is considered a security risk. I know this because I have immediate family members who have classified security, status. So having said that, does the military actively prosecute adultery? The military doesn't even prosecute rape within its ranks, chatter. What the hell are you talking about? Come on. Be for freaking real. So that's number one. Number two, and this is perhaps the interesting question here, is it a blackmail opportunity if we live in the Trump world, where one can be as shameless as they want to be and suffer zero repercussions for it? Because blackmail only works if you have the capacity to feel shame. Blackmail only works on someone who wants to hide their crimes, on someone who wants to keep it a secret that he is a serial adulterer. Clearly, blackmail won't work on the likes of Pete Hegseth because all of his issues are laid bare as he sits there and openly takes it. This is one of the interesting dynamics, in my opinion, of the Trump world. This is literally a point the chatter was making. What are we talking about then? This chatter is right. This sort of hand-wringing about his infidelity, hypocrisy is a waste of time. Conservatives don't care about it, and liberals won't do anything about it. No, the other chatter I'm laughing at, who said like infidelity is a major issue in the military. You don't understand. Anyway, let's continue.
Had sex at that hotel in October 2017. You said it was consensual, isn't that correct?
Anything,
You've admitted that it was consensual, and you were still married, and you just had a child by another woman.
again,
How do you explain your
completely
judgment?
false charges against me.
You
Fully investigated, and I was
you-
completely clear.
You have admitted that you had sex while you were married to wife 2 after you just had fathered a child by wife 3. You've admitted that. Now, if it had been a sexual assault, that would be disqualifying to be Secretary of Defense, wouldn't it?
It was a false claim then and a false claim now.
If it had been a sexual assault, that would be disqualifying to be Secretary of Defense, wouldn't it?
That was a false claim.
So
Just
you
talking
can't,
about a hypothetical.
so you can't tell me whether someone who has committed a sexual assault is disqualified from being Secretary of Defense?
Senator, I know in my instance, and I'm talking about my instance only, it was a false claim.
But you acknowledge,
And it was
but you
fully
acknowledge
investigated.
that you cheated on your wife and that you cheated on the woman by whom you had just fathered a child. You have admitted that.
I will allow your words to speak for themselves.
You're not retracting that today. That's good. I assume that in each of your weddings, you've pledged to be faithful to your wife. You've taken an oath to do that, haven't you?
Senator, as I've acknowledged to everyone in this committee, not a perfect person, not claiming to
But
be.
no, I just asked a simple question. You've taken an oath, like you would take an oath to be Secretary of Defense in all of your weddings to be faithful to your wife. Is that correct?
I have failed in things in my life, and thankfully I'm redeemed by my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ.
Oh God, dude, shut up. What is this Jesus Christ nonsense? I hate, dude, I hate people who very clearly use this like aesthetics focused, hyper religious attitude as a shield when virtually no one cares. Who is this for, is what I think. Every time I see someone behave like this, I'm like, no, dude, this doesn't work. Like, who is this for? Like, you're a bad dude. You've cheated on your wife. You've cheated on wives, multiple wives, over and over again. That's like kind of your thing. You've sexually assaulted women. Like, I hate this. I hate this stuff where it's like, nah, God has forgiven me for it. It's like, no, man, you are absolutely, you're going to God jail, okay? You're going to hell, dog. You are literally going to hell. It works for my Jamaican conservative aunties, unfortunately. I don't want to come across like a annoying Reddit atheist here, but it's just like so frustrating when I hear stuff like this from people who have just like done awful things. Okay? Just say you've atoned, okay? Just say that you've done horrible things and then show your work on why you are no longer, that like those things don't represent who you are as a human being. But no, he's got to be like, nah, God has actually forgiven me for my sins. Oh, do you know that? Do you know that God forgives you for your sins? Do you have any, like, did he tell you? Who told you that? Did God tell you that? It's also weirdly, like, very, I don't know. It just comes across as like very self-aggrandizing. It's like, yeah, I got a direct line to God. Yeah, me and him, we're on speaking terms, dude. He's like, when I was cheating on my third wife, God was like, keep going, Pete. God was watching my stroke game. Like, anyway, that's how Christianity works. I mean, that's how a lot of people just like use and abuse religion.
In finalizing divorces from your first and second wives, were there non-disclosure agreements in connection with those divorces?
Senator, not that I'm aware of.
If there were, would you agree to release those first and second wives from any confidentiality agreement?
Senator, it's not something I'm aware of.
But if there were, you would agree to release them from a confidentiality agreement?
Senator, that's not my responsibility.
Did you ever engage in any acts of physical violence against any of your wives?
Senator, absolutely not.
But you would agree with me that if someone had committed physical violence against a spouse, that would be disqualifying to serve as Secretary of Defense, correct?
Senator, absolutely not have I ever done that.
You would agree that that would be a disqualifying offense, would you not?
Senator, you're talking about a hypothetical.
I don't think it's a hypothetical. Violence against spouses occurs every day. And if you as a leader are not capable of saying that physical violence against a spouse should be a disqualifying fact for being secretary of the most powerful nation in the world, you're demonstrating an astonishing lack of judgment. The incident in Monterey led to a criminal charge, a criminal investigation.
Yeah, here, I'm going to own Pete Hegseth. I talked to God. Okay? I talked to God. He said you're bad and you shouldn't be the Secretary of Defense. What now, Pete? What now, dog? What now, big dog? Yeah, that's right. Owned. You know what I'm saying? Checkmate. Checkmate, God lovers. God, I'm turning into such a Reddit atheist. When I just like the Christian dominionist attitude is really gross to me because it's like it is the American version of ISIS, basically. And we don't have the same capacity to understand when it's like when it's basically a Christian operating on that same mentality. Because there is a formality, a structure, a process. It's more systematized when like the American government is dishing out this kind of violence. This is akin to having an ISIS person lead the most powerful military on the planet. Like his Christianity is not Christianity in the way that you understand it, in the way that you see it in your daily lives, in the way that you know your immediate family members who are like kind individuals who just, you know, happen to be Christian. His Christianity is a violent one. It is a violent, false interpretation of Christianity, and that genuinely is frustrating to see. I mean, he literally has he has a Crusaders tattoo. It's a militant form of Christianity. He's very open about it. It's not something that he hides at all. It's actually part of the reason why I think Donald Trump wants him to be the Department of Defense lead here. So it's very frustrating. Yeah, he's got the Jerusalem cross. He's got the Crusader tattoo. Like, he is very much so a Christian nationalist. And normally I would say it's a LARP. For many people it is. But for Pete Hegseth, like, he's going to be in charge of the largest, most powerful military force on the planet. As a religious extremist, the invocation of God in this circumstance as a deflection, as a shield, as a defense mechanism to be like, oh, I'm a godly man and God has forgiven me for my adultery. It just rings hollow because I know what you think God is telling you. You know? Anyway.
Investigation, a private settlement, and a cash payment to the woman who filed the complaint. And there was also a non-disclosure agreement, correct?
It was a confidential settlement agreement off of a nuisance lawsuit.
Right. During an interview, you claimed that you settled the matter because you were worried that if it became public, it might hurt your career. Do you maintain that you were blackmailed?
Senator, I maintain that false claims were made against me. And ultimately,
your attorney
those
used
false
the
claims,
phrase,
I have the opportunity to attest my innocence in those false claims.
But you didn't reveal any of this to President Trump or the transition team as they were considering you to be nominated for Secretary of Defense. You didn't reveal the action. You didn't reveal the criminal complaint. You didn't reveal the criminal investigation. You didn't reveal the settlement. You didn't reveal the cash payment. Why didn't you inform the commander-in-chief and the transition team of this very relevant event?
Senator, I've appreciated every part of the process with the transition team. They have been open and
Confidential settlement agreement off a nuisance lawsuit. I guarantee you had to memorize that turn of phrase. Yeah, it seems very coached. I mean, that makes sense though. You got to get a little bit of coaching. You know that that's going to be brought up. I mean, yeah.
honest with me. He's
also a TV guy. I mean, he is. Make no mistake, as hoorah and as gung-ho as he is, and as silly as he is, and as stupid as he is, he's still media trained enough. He is quite literally a media guy, right? So he knows how to appear in these moments. Everything that people like this do is deliberate in that situation. Look, down to the pocket, down to the silly aesthetics of wearing like an American flag handkerchief as your pocket handkerchief, you know? And once again, remember, this man, regardless of how much he LARPs as like a doorbuster, I mean, he is Harvard educated, right?
great conversations between the two of us. And I appreciate the opportunity that President-elect Trump has given me.
You chose not to reveal this, right? Because you knew it would hurt your chances. So you chose not to reveal this really important thing to the commander-in-chief and the transition team because you were worried about your chances rather than trying to be candid with the future president of the United States.
I know. Theology student, I know. You always chirp whenever we talk about Christian socialism. Everyone can be redeemed, but in our act of contrition, we pledge to amend our lives moving forward and never to sin again. He seems not to have done this. Plus, Pete is a heretic dominionist. That's what I'm saying. That's the part that like really is frustrating. That's why his invocation of God rings hollow, because he's a Christian dominionist. He is insane. He is literally the Al-Qaeda of Christianity. Like, and the wild part about it is you can be the Al-Qaeda of Christianity and no one bats an eye at that. You know? That's what's so crazy about it. Like, there is functionally, in the way that this man and his ilk, his kind, has bastardized Christianity, there is functionally no difference between that and ISIS. Okay? There's just nothing. There's no difference. The only difference is, I guess, it's dished out by the American state, so it's not seen in the same way. It's not a non-state actor. That's the difference between a drone strike and a drone strike wiping out an entire city block versus someone blowing up an improvised explosive device. One is an act of terror. The other one is, normal rules of engagement being followed in the field of war, in the field of battle, in the theater of combat.
Are there any other important facts that you chose not to reveal to the president-elect and his team as they were considering you to be Secretary of Defense?
Senator, I sit here before you an open book, as everyone who's watched this process.
With multiple non-disclosure and confidentiality agreements tying the hands of many people who would like to comment to us. Much has been made of your workplace behavior as a leader of nonprofit veterans organizations and as a Fox News contributor. Were you fired from either of the leadership positions with the nonprofits?
I was the leader. I was the CEO of Concerned Veterans for America and
those
executive
two,
director of Vets for Freedom.
Were you fired from either
and I
of
was
them?
never fired from a veterans organization.
Do you have non-disclosure agreements with either of those organizations?
Not that I'm aware of, Senator.
Many of your work colleagues have said that you show up for work under the influence of alcohol or drunk. I know you've denied that, but you would agree with me, right, that if that was the case, that would be disqualifying for somebody to be Secretary of Defense.
Senator, those are all anonymous false claims, and the totality
they're not anonymous.
The letters on the record here.
They're not anonymous.
On the record, people
we've seen records with names
Vets
attached
for Freedom,
to them.
Concerned Vets for America, and Fox News attributing to me working hard every day on behalf of
One of your
mission.
colleagues said that you got drunk at an event at a bar and chanted, "Kill all Muslims." Another colleague, not anonymous, we have this, said that you took co-workers to a strip club. You were drunk, you tried to dance with strippers, you had to be held off the stage, and one of your employees in that event...
I love that he gets like country girl drunk, you know what I mean? Like, that's so funny. He's like... He's so obviously not the right guy for this task, okay? Not the right guy for this job whatsoever. And there are so many instances in his past where he will just get like white girl wasted. I think Felix had a really funny bit about it where, He's the type of dude who just gets absolutely wasted and is a problem around, around his friends' daughters, like high school students, trying to get him, trying to play like Insane Clown Posse at the barbecue, just hammered at like 12:30. Is this a meaning about him getting rejected or just question? No, this is a question. This is supposed to be a job application. But he's going to get it anyway. Like, I don't think this meeting will be impactful.
Filed a sexual harassment charge as a result of it. Now, I know you denied these things, but isn't that the kind of behavior that, if true, would be disqualifying for somebody to be Secretary of Defense?
Senator, anonymous false charges.
They're not anonymous. And I'll just conclude and say this to the chairman. You claim that this was all anonymous. We have seen records with names attached to all of these, including the name of your own mother. So don't make this into some anonymous press thing. We have seen multiple names of colleagues consistently throughout your career that have talked about your abusive.
Yeah. One of those people was his mom. Like, it's not your mom, dog. Your mom was like, you're a bad person. You need to stop being a plague on women. I have failed you. I have failed this nation. Like, I mean, look, that's crazy. Like that is like, that's the one person that you don't expect to come out against you like that. Hexit wrote that he related to an online image of an Islamic State fighter saying the soldier is fighting for something greater than himself. He is fighting for his God, and continued by saying, I recognize that fighter, even though I've never met him. I'm drawn to him because I relate to him. I deplore what he stands for, what he does, and how he does it. He's a soldier of hate, subjugation, and sheer evil, but I understand his passions. Well, seems like there's more evidence of my argument that he is just basically, Christian ISIS. It's from this Politico magazine article, by the way, that scoured through Pete Hegseth's writings. Here it is. In his 2016 memoir, In the Arena, Hegseth says he relates to an online image of a triumphant ISIS fighter, a Quran in one hand and an AK-47 in the other. With God on his side and the wind at his back, he is a conquering warrior, Hegseth writes. He is fighting for something greater than himself. He's fighting for his God. In this photo, Hegseth sees a warped version of himself. I recognize that fighter, even though I've never met him. I'm drawn to him because I relate to him, he writes. I deplore what he stands for, what he does, and how he does it. He's a soldier of hate, subjugation, and sheer evil, but I understand his passions. There is fundamentally very little difference, very little daylight between Pete Hegseth and an ISIS fighter. Okay? If you were to remove yourself from, your understanding of the world as an American, okay, your understanding of Christianity, your attitude towards all that stuff, you would look to the situation and see virtually no difference. Virtually no difference whatsoever between an ISIS fighter and Pete Hegseth. That is what's so crazy. Hogs are universal, yes. And there are varying degrees of hogs. There are funny hogs, and then there are dangerous hogs. Okay? Hog universality is important to understand. It's a principle that I abide by. It's a principle that Hasan, look it up. Oh yeah. Okay, yeah. Christ/ISIS from the guys who called the pirate a cool guy. I am, but Hasan, you're being a hippo about it. Wait, what? Like a hypocrite? Are you saying I'm a fan, but Hasan, you're being a hypocrite about it? My friend, do you think I like ISIS? Do you think I'm a fan of ISIS? If you're comparing a 19-year-old Yemeni teen who is not a part of the Ansar Allah movement, okay, to ISIS, I don't know what to tell you. A 19-year-old Yemeni teenager that is not a part of the Ansar Allah movement is not even remotely comparable to ISIS. And the Ansar Allah movement is not comparable to ISIS either, for the record. Okay? Having said that, I have also been very critical of the Ansar Allah administration's domestic affairs and their personal conduct in terms of religion, or even their motto, their credo, that has anti-Semitic statements in it. But that's neither here nor there. Yeah. Also, speaking of ISIS and Al-Qaeda, the former head of Al-Qaeda is now in charge of Syria. And we seemingly love that. So I think that Americans don't mind ISIS. The American government does not mind ISIS or Al-Qaeda or any number of different Salafists, as long as they are working in line with the American State Department and their interests and their goals in the region. Driplani, yeah, Zelensky. he got hit with the Zelensky ray. Anyway, let's continue. Warren reads multiple statements of Hexit and women in combat.
So if you're confirmed as Secretary of Defense, you will oversee our military, including about 250,000 women who currently serve on active duty in the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, the Space Forces, and the Marines. And I have serious concerns that your behavior toward women disqualifies you from serving in this role. Now, I've been trying to get answers from you for quite some time on this. You haven't wanted to meet or to answer any of my questions, so we'll just have to do it here and dive in. I want to pick up on some of the questions asked by Senators Shaheen and Gillibrand and Hirono, and I just want to make sure we have a list of some of the facts that I think are undisputed. I'm not going to talk about anonymous sources. I'm just going to quote you directly. We've got the video. We've got it in print. So going back to January 2013, you told a Fox News interviewer that women in the military simply couldn't measure up to men in the military, saying that allowing women to serve in combat roles would force the military to lower the bar. You picked up on that same theme in 2015, making remarks on Fox News, referring to women in combat as, quote, it would erode standards. June 2024, you said on Ben Shapiro's podcast, quote, women shouldn't be in combat at all. And then, of course, we've talked about it in 2024. You published a book, and you say on page 26 of your book, we need moms, but not in the military, especially in combat units. Page 48 of your book, you claim that women should not be in combat roles because men are distracted by women. And then 10 weeks ago, you appeared on the Sean Ryan show and said, I'm straight up just saying we should not have women in combat roles.
I like that he clarified it so many times. He's like, no, guys, drop everything. This is the one thing Make no mistake, I do not think women should serve in the military. Now, and we talked about this with you know, the trans ban in the military as well. There are many roles. The Defense Department is a hiring body. It's a government jobs program. It is the largest government jobs program. It's the second largest hiring body in the nation after Walmart. Okay. So when you make decisions like this across the board, when you're just like, yeah, we're just not going to have any black people in the military anymore, or we're just not going to have any women in the military anymore, or we're just not going to have any trans people in the military anymore. That's like, you have now eradicated tens of thousands of jobs, sometimes hundreds of thousands of jobs. Okay. In a way that is also unconstitutional, in a way that is also not allowed. Now, am I a firm and committed believer in, you know, making more female, gay, non-binary, or trans drone operators or whatever and make them do the war crimes? No, I don't care. But I also understand the current situation that we exist under. I don't like the military's output, but I do understand that it's still the second largest hiring body in the nation. I think he said combat, not military. I could be wrong. Yes, he has mentioned combat, but also military as well, when he says women should be in the kitchen and barefoot and pregnant and not in the army. Now, what's funny about this also is that women in combat positions still have to abide by the same standards. The military has lowered restrictions, as that one chatter tried to own me with that article, because the military has a recruitment crisis. Having said that, however, despite the fact that the military has a recruitment crisis right now, and that's a good thing, by the way, it's not a bad thing. If you want to get a combat position, or if you want to, you know, become a ranger or whatever, those restrictions have not been lowered for women. That's not a thing. Okay. So if a woman is capable of getting into that position, they have to undergo the same exact testing that men have to go through. That's it.
Roles. Now, I presume you recall making all these statements?
Senator, I'm not familiar with the article you're pointing to in 2013, but it underscores my argument completely, because in that 2013 argument, I was talking about standards.
No,
standards are what it's always been about,
let's not
Senator.
have this same fight again.
Always been about Senate
I've quoted
standards.
you directly. We've got the video. We're happy to show it.
Anyway, yeah, I was just going crazy. I was just saying things, Senator. You don't understand. I don't know what I'm saying.
Absolutely. 12 years, you were quite open about your views, and your views were consistently the same. Women are inferior soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen, and guardians. And in case anyone missed the point, and these are your words from...
I think it's so funny because he just kept, like there is no defense here, because, like, it's a thing that he has repeated so much. Like, it is a thing that he has openly repeated and defended so much. So at that point, you just have to say, like, yeah, they suck. Women ain't shit, Senator. Like, there's nothing. Like, he wrote it in a book multiple times. Like, he defended it publicly multiple times. It's this thing that he believes.
10 weeks ago, women absolutely straight up should not be permitted to serve in combat. And I notice on each of these quotes, those are said without qualification. It's not by how much you can lift or how fast you can run. They don't belong in combat, period. Or your words.
It's so awesome. He's like, no, I don't even care if they can outlive me, okay? I still don't want them. Like, make no mistake, okay? Being a woman is disqualifying. I would like to discriminate based on gender in the second largest hiring body in the United States of America. Straight up, make no mistake. If this somehow if this somehow gets brought up in a congressional hearing later down the line in the future, 10 years from now, 5 years from now, who knows? I want the world to know I do not think women should be in the military. They should be in the kitchen instead. Like, that's crazy. It's like a meme almost. Like, it wasn't, they're not combing through his background to find like a badly placed quote. You know what I mean? They're not doing, they don't have to do the thing that my haters have to do whenever they like discuss my, crimes against women or whatever, where they'll just like clip something out of context. He just very clearly is like, this is what I believe. I hate them. I don't know how many times I have to repeat it. Like, it seems like he randomly would bring it up in times where it didn't even, it didn't even make sense.
Senator Sullivan, Senator Kane.
Question of clear.
Anyway.
So quickly, forget about that. And then Senator Kane, or I guess I better use the senator from Virginia, starts bringing up the fact that what if you showed up drunk to your job? How many senators have showed up drunk to vote at night? Have any of you guys asked them to step down and resign from their job?
Wait, what? What? I mean, they shouldn't either. What's going on here? Why is this? How is that an argument, dude? Hey, who amongst us isn't hammered? I'm hammered right now. You want me to step down? I'm out of my goddamn mind right now. Who amongst us doesn't enjoy the libations every now and again? Drinking on the job makes it infinitely more pleasurable. Closer to God, I say. What is happening?
And don't tell me you haven't seen it, because I know you have. And then how many senators do you know have got a divorce before cheating on their wives? Did you ask them to step down? No.
Well, there's a difference, right? First of all, I don't care. If we want to do adultery, I don't even care about Pete Hegseth's adultery. I just think it's funny that he claims to be super Christian and has done endless amounts of adultery. And the argument here for the appointment hearings is that adultery or proclivity towards adultery opens you up to blackmail, which, once again, I also told you is not necessarily the case for someone like Pete Hegseth, because it's very obvious. If you're shameless, it doesn't really matter. If you're not open to blackmail if you're a shameless man, okay? Stop saying adultery is illegal if you are in the military. I know the reasons for why that is the case, and most people don't actually follow through on that. Oh my God. It's so funny that people keep saying adultery is literally illegal. Yes, dude, I know you saw the statute. Go talk to any veteran or active duty service member. Please. What a hilarious thing, dude. Like, oh yeah, I know. Adultery is illegal in the military. Yes, so is rape, okay? Hasn't stopped military members from engaging in both, okay? My friend group is military children. 4 out of 5 of us have divorced parents due to cheating. Yeah. What's next, dude? Are you going to tell me that violating rules of engagement is a serious, comes with serious misconduct? I mean, serious penalties for said misconduct? What's next? You're going to tell me war crimes are crimes? Oh my God, I know. Yeah. Are you going to tell me that there is a law in the books in the United States of America called the Leahy Law, which makes it illegal for the American government to actually keep giving weapons to a foreign ally that is consistently violating international human rights. You cannot be this silly. Laws don't matter anymore is also ridiculous. Laws have never really mattered. Okay? Laws have never really mattered. What matters is the goals that we have. A lot of this stuff is just aesthetic.
Oh, but it's for show. You guys make sure you make a big show and point out the hypocrisy because a man's made a mistake. And you want to sit there and say that he's not qualified? Give me a joke. I mean, it is so ridiculous.
When talking about the military, you have a blind spot. It's rare, but I have seen 3 people in my 10 years of service actually get prosecuted for adultery. I don't think I have a blind spot I don't think this is a blind spot. I think it's laughable to say that, like, the military actively stamps out adultery when the military barely addresses rape amongst its ranks in its own bases. Give me a joke, I say.
That you guys hold yourself as this higher standard and you forget you got a big plank in your eye. We've all made mistakes. I've made mistakes. And Jennifer, thank you for loving him through that mistake. Because the only reason why I'm here and not in prison is because my wife loved me too.
And so did so did Pete Hex's second wife, and so did his third. A pattern that is clear. They loved him so much. They loved him when he was in the marriage with the first wife. And then the second wife was in love with him when he was in the marriage with the first wife. And then the third wife was also in love with him when he was in the marriage with the second wife. You understand me? And hopefully a fourth one will come down the line.
I have changed, but I'm not perfect. But I found somebody that thought I was perfect. And for whatever reason, you love Pete, and I don't know why.
Senator Warren.
Thank you.
All right, we covered the Senator Warren heated exchange.
Senator Gillibrand.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr.
4 cases of sexual assault within the local population of Okinawa within 6 months by American Marines. Oh, yeah. One of the victims was was a schoolgirl, a teenager, and another one was literally like, I don't know if this is correct or not, so I'm not going to say it, but one of them was a child. Okay? Yeah. That's also rape on foreign bases of like the, native population. There's also a major issue with sexual assaults within the ranks. Okay? Sexual assault where men sexually assault other men, sexual assault where men sexually assault other female colleagues. Like, this is a real issue within the military.
Hegseth, I do want to thank you for your service, I want to thank you for your willingness to serve in this capacity.
Thank you, Senator.
I have many concerns about your record, and particularly your public statements, because they are so hurtful to the men and women who are currently serving in the U.S. military.
All right, this is going viral.
That you could do acquisition and cross-servicing agreements, which essentially are security agreements. You can't even mention that. You've done none of those. You talked about the Indo-Pacific a little bit, and I'm glad that you mention it. Can you name the importance of at least one of the nations in the ASEAN, and what type of agreement we have with at least one of those nations? And how many nations are in ASEAN, by the way?
I couldn't tell you the exact amount of nations in that, but I know we have allies in South Korea and Japan and in AUKUS with Australia trying to work.
That's crazy that he named the only countries in that region that are not a part of the ASEAN alignment. And he just dropped AUKUS too. He dropped AUKUS because he had to say Australia because he wanted to say AUKUS. But it's so funny that like he basically carved out the countries that are not a part of it. He circled around. He went there. He went to the region, okay, through name recognition, and basically chose the only countries that are not a part of this specific alignment. That's amazing.
On submarines with them.
Mr.
and data
Hegseth,
transfers
none
with
of those
them.
countries
We
are
have
in
allies
ASEAN.
across.
None of those 3 countries that you've mentioned are in ASEAN. I suggest you do a little homework before you prepare.
No, he literally chose the only countries that are not in the Association of Southeast Asian Nations. That's awesome. He's like, you know, there's countries. What, Senator, you mean Asian? Okay, Australia. It's close enough. I saw people on Twitter being like, well, it's pretty obscure. I had to look it up too. Yeah, no shit. That's why you aren't being looked at for Secretary of Defense. Yeah. He doesn't have a PhD in foreign policy. He's just that good. For all of his faults and failures, I feel like Joe Biden would know the nations. You know what I mean? Is there actually any chance this guy gets confirmed? I know we're in the Twilight Zone. Yes. 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 Yeah. ASEAN, you mean island China, anti-China Chinese, China that we bombed quite a bit next to the anti-China Chinese. It's like, you know, China light, different kinds of Chinese. Excuse me. China that we bombed quite a bit. Bomb China. This is just a humiliation ritual to get the seat. Yeah. So are Dems just running him through the mud for performance and optics, safe, and they'll fall in line and play ball? I think there are ways in which he can forcibly pass through. So it's more so about whipping up the ranks within the Republican Party. It's going to come down to like a couple of Republicans that might hold out, but all of this is a humiliation ritual at the end of the day. Trump has already said that he would get Hegseth confirmed regardless. Okay.
Harmful to morale, harmful to good order and discipline. If you are saying that women shouldn't be serving in the military, and I'm going to read you your quotes because the quotes themselves are terrible. You will have to change how you see women to do this job well, and I don't know if you are capable of that. So I want to press on these issues that my colleague Jean Shaheen brought up because she said it so well. So first of all, you answered your questionnaire. Do you believe that any American who wants to serve in their country in the military and can meet objective standards set by the military should be allowed to serve without limitation? You've said yes to that question. But then in all of these other circumstances, you've denigrated active duty service members. We have hundreds of women who are currently in the infantry, lethal members of our military serving in the infantry, but you degrade them. You say, we need moms, but not in the military, especially in combat units. So specific to Senator Cotton's question, because Senator Cotton was giving you layups to differentiate between different types of combat. And specifically, As secretary, would you take any action to reinstitute the combat arms exclusion for female service members, knowing full well you have hundreds of women doing that job right now? And the standards, your 2 mile run, Tom, is about the Army combat fitness test. It is not the requirements to have an MOS 11 Bravo, which is the infantry. These are the requirements today for people serving in the industry, men and women. They are gender neutral, and they are very difficult to meet. They have not been reduced in any way, and our combat—
Told you. But it is funny that he just like either doesn't know or doesn't care. It's awesome that so many Americans will just hear him say that and be like, I agree. I agree with him.
Units, our infantry is lethal. So please explain specifically, because you will be in charge of 3 million personnel. It is a big job. And when you make these public statements, and I get you were not Secretary of Defense then, I get you were on TV, I get you were helping veterans, I get it was a different job. But most recently, you said this in November of 2024, knowing full well you might have been named as Secretary of Defense. So please explain these types of statements, because they're brutal and they're mean and they disrespect men and women who are willing to die for this country.
Well, Senator, I appreciate your comments, and I would point out I have never disparaged women serving in the military. I respect every single female service member.
But I don't think that they should be in the military. I'm simply stating that they don't deserve to be in the military.
That is put on the uniform past and present. My critiques, Senator, recently and in the past, and from personal experience, have been instances where I've seen standards lowered, and you mentioned 11 Alpha, 11 Bravo, MOS, places in units, and the book that has been referenced multiple times here, The War on Warriors. I spent months talking to active duty service members, men and women, low ranks, high ranks, combat arms and not combat arms. And what each and every one of them told me, and which personal instances have shown me, is that in ways direct, indirect, overt, and subtle, standards have been changed inside infantry training units, ranger school, infantry battalions, to ensure that
Give me one example. Please give me an example. I get you're making these generalized statements.
Commanders meet quotas to have a certain number of female infantry officers or infantry enlisted, and that disparages those.
I believe women can serve in the military. Do you believe that choosing who you serve with is a compromise? Just as in healthcare, you can choose your providers based on preference and religion. Wait, what? This is not. I don't even understand what this example is. What? A massive government hiring body cannot make gender-based discrimination. It is illegal. And also very consequential. Like, what are we talking about? I'm looking at this simply as a hiring body. I'm not looking at this as like what the military's output is. Yeah, if you ask me, I think the American military should never engage in war ever again. Get all of those people that have jobs to start building immediately, okay? Build bridges and buildings and stuff like that. The American military is a massive hiring body. It's the second largest hiring body in the country after Walmart, okay? We're talking 3 million people. And they have a massive problem with recruitment. So any kind of standard lowering that has taken place is an effort to combat that, for the record. Yeah, this is actually a funny point. Is this Hexet not aware he isn't qualified? He doesn't have imposter syndrome at all? Is crazy. Yeah, he's talking about women not being qualified to be a part of the military, while he is not qualified to be the Secretary of Defense. Only 19% of the public approved Donald Trump's nomination of Pete Hexet as Secretary of Defense, but it doesn't really matter. 41% of Republicans approve of Hegseth's nomination and 54% of Democrats disapprove. Many don't know enough about the nominee to have an opinion. I don't think that more Democrats are going to approve of him after this meeting. More Republicans might, though.
Those women
Commanders do not have to be quotas for the infantry.
standard.
Commanders do not have to have a quota for women in the infantry. That does not exist. It does not exist. And your statements are creating the impression that these exist, because they do not. There are not quotas. We want the most lethal force. But I'm telling you, having been here for 15 years, listening to testimony about men and women in combat and the type of operations that were successful in Afghanistan and in Iraq, women were essential for many of those units. When Ranger units went in to find where the terrorists hiding in Afghanistan or in Iraq, if they had a woman in the unit, they could go in, talk to the women in a village, say, where are the terrorists hiding? Where are the weapons hiding? And get crucial information to make sure that we can win that battle. So you cannot denigrate women in general, and your statements do that. We don't want women in the...
I'm in such a weird... What are you doing, Mom? I'm in such a weird position here because like it comes across like I'm defending the American military or its military successes or whatever, and I certainly am not. Okay, I'm just simply treating the American military, Department of Defense, Pentagon as a jobs program, a government-funded jobs program. Okay?
The military, especially in combat. What a terrible statement. So please, do not deny that you've made those statements. You have. We take the responsibility of standards very seriously, and we will work with you. I'm equally distressed you would not meet with me before this hearing. We could have covered all of this before you came here, so I could get to the 15 other questions that I want to get to. So women, you have denigrated. You have also denigrated members of the LGBTQ community. Did you know that when Don't Ask, Don't Tell was in place, we lost so many crucial personnel, over 1,000 in mission-critical areas. We lost 10% of all our foreign language speakers because of a political policy. You said in your statement, you don't want politics in the DOD. Everything you've said in these public statements is politics. I don't want women. I don't want moms. What's wrong with a mom, by the way? Once you have babies, you therefore are no longer able to be lethal. I mean, you're basically saying women, after they have children, can't ever serve in the military in a combat role. It's a silly thing to say. It's a silly thing to say, beneath the position that you are aspiring to. To denigrate LGBTQ service members is a mistake. If you are a sharpshooter, you're as lethal regardless of what your gender identity is, regardless of who you love. So please know this to be a true statement. So you say it was a political thing. You say it undermined us, social engineering. I don't know why someone having to publicly say or not publicly say who they love is social engineering. I think having that policy in the first place was highly problematic. And as you said in your statement, do you agree anybody should be able to serve in the military if they meet the standards?
Senator, as the president has stated, I don't disagree with the overturn of Don't Ask, Don't Tell.
Great, because I don't want you thinking, can't serve if you're a mom, can't serve if you're LGBTQ, and then last, can't serve if you're a leftist. The statements you said about people who have views differently than you, that we're the enemy, are you saying the 50%?
He's heard Felix Biederman's famous bit about, not bit, but famous theory about having a military coup utilizing the revolutionary sentiment and the only organized body in the American government that is still somewhat competent to be able to bring about a socialist republic.
Of the DOD, if they hold liberal views or leftist views or our Democrats are not welcome in the military? Are you saying that?
Senator, I volunteered to deploy to Afghanistan under Democrat President Barack Obama. I also volunteered to guard the inauguration of Joe Biden, but was denied the opportunity to serve because.
Yeah, this is like a big part of his anger and resentment because he had a Jerusalem cross tattoo and a Deus Vult tattoo. They were like, yeah, I don't think you should, you know, you're a bit of an extremist, Pete. Also because of all the times where you were written up for saying you want to massacre Muslims or, I don't know, the fact that you think women are ineligible for combat positions and should not be in the military. Like, these are extremist positions. Make no mistake.
Because I was identified as an extremist by my own unit for a Christian tattoo.
Thank you very much. Senator Gillibrand, you held up a document and referred to it during your questioning. Would you like that entered into the record?
It may be one without my marks.
Okay, yeah, okay, we'll delete.
We'll submit a clean copy.
Without objection, that will be admitted at the point of your question. And I would like to enter into the record at this point a letter of support from retired Air Force Colonel.
He has two tattoos. One is a Jerusalem cross. The other one is just Deus Vult.
Melissa Cunningham. Colonel Cunningham supports Mr. Hexeth and mentions his warrior ethos, combative.
Watch. Hexeth says he supports Israel destroying and killing every last member of Hamas. I'm glad that Senator Tom Cotton and Pete Hexeth could get together and talk about the important issues, you know? Killing more Palestinian children.
We've got a big audience here. Many of them seem to be patriotic supporters of you, Mr. Hexeth. Some of them seem to be liberal critics of you. I would note that it's only the liberal critics that have disrupted this hearing. As was my custom during the Biden administration, I want to give you a chance to respond to what they said about you. I think the first one accused you of being a Christian Zionist. I'm not really sure why that is a bad thing. I'm a Christian. I'm a Zionist. Zionism is that the Jewish people deserve a homeland in the ancient Holy Land where they've lived since the dawn of history. Do you consider?
Dude. Like, I just don't like, imagine being a dude in Arkansas and hearing your senator be like, I'm a Christian Zionist. Aren't you a Christian Zionist? Jews have a holy land they belong to. They must have that holy land. It's the most important position of all time. Like, a random dude in Arkansas that already has anti-Semitic opinions, like, oh yeah, them Jews do, own a lot of stuff, huh? Isn't that weird? Like, when you hear your senator say stuff like this, like, that's just like you're supercharging anti-Semitism. Unless you're already an evangelical that is going to a megachurch where you're constantly talking about how the Holy Land belongs to Jews. But it's crazy.
Consider yourself a Christian Zionist?
Senator, I'm a Christian, and I robustly support the state of Israel and its existential defense, and the way America comes alongside them is their a great ally.
Thank you. Because another protester, and I think this one was a member of Code Pink, which, by the way, is a Chinese Communist front group.
I thought they were a socialist USSR cutout. Now they're a Chinese Communist front group.
These days, said that you support
Israel. These days. Never mind. They've changed it.
Israel's war in Gaza. I support Israel's existential war in Gaza. I assume, like me and President Trump, you support that war as well, don't you?
Senator, I do. I support Israel destroying and killing every last member of Hamas.
And the third protester said something about 20 years of genocide. I assume that's our wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. Do you think our troops are committing genocide in Iraq and Afghanistan?
Senator, I do not. I think our troops, as you know, as so many in this committee know, did the best they could with what they have.
Yes, Code Pink is a bunch of old Jewish ladies. Yes. It is, they're like old school OG anti-war protesters. Tom Cotton and Nancy Pelosi doing the handshake emoji on hating Code Pink. I mean, yes, that's the... You need to understand something. That's why I always say American foreign policy is bipartisan, okay, with very, very few exceptions.
We're not the outcomes, and tragically, the outcome we saw in Afghanistan under the Biden administration put a stain on that, but it doesn't put a stain on what those men and women did in uniform, as you know full well, Senator.
Do you believe the military is a systemically racist or?
This is my favorite type of line of questioning when they're just like, you know, we got to talk about wokeness and DEI in the military. Again, all matter of DEI style conversations is just pure marketing for the most part. Like in terms of the military doing like any kind of initiatives, they're specifically talking about I mean, they're doing that to you know, try to combat the hiring crisis that they have.
Organization, and if confirmed, will you commit to defend, not denigrate our troops?
Senator, I was also offended by those comments because anyone who's been on active duty in the National Guard, man, woman, in units, understand that is fundamentally false.
By the way, there's 3 studies, to his credit, Secretary Austin put out one of them, that said exactly what you just said. Fundamentally false.
Senator, they knew it. Anyone who'd been in a unit knew it. One could argue that if not the least, one of the least racist institutions in our country is the United States.
And I'm going to work on that. I'm going to work to make that no longer the reality, okay?
United States military. Being a racist in our military has not been tolerated for a very long time.
One of the greatest civil rights organizations in America. Would you agree the U.S. military is one of the most forward-leaning, probably one of the greatest civil rights organizations in American history?
No doubt.
Let me turn to another one. Last year at a hearing before this committee, I called on the Biden Secretary of the Navy to resign because he's failing in his ability to build ships. We are being completely outbuilt in terms of ships by the Chinese, and yet this Secretary of the Navy has been focused.
This is so funny to say because, like, how many aircraft carriers do the Chinese have? Okay, versus how many we have, and what the operational capacity and what the logistics that the American military has. Not the glaze, okay? But we have far outspent every other nation for far too long. It is virtually impossible for our foreign adversaries to even come close. People don't understand the full scope of American empire. They don't understand that a major part of this process, being everywhere all at once, requires a massively complex logistical chain, okay? You need constant refueling. You need constant resupply. You need Amazon deliveries that that are getting shipped to the aircraft carriers in real time. This conversation about ships is already insane. We already don't have the manpower to man the ships that we currently have. Every sailor rolls their eyes at this because everyone is already overworked due to manpower. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. They're like, oh yeah, they're outbuilding us. It's like, dude, you don't have, there's not enough people, dude. not only do we have more ships, but we have an incredibly complex web of logistics. We have a supply chain. We have a global supply chain that feeds these aircraft carriers and our military bases all around the planet. And we also have an incredibly complex web of constant spying, like constant surveillance that works effectively with all of our aircraft as well. These are things that no other foreign nation, adversary or not, will ever be able to achieve. I don't understand why these people are so invested in saying that the American military is woke that they're just like, once again, undermining the truth. China can't even achieve it. No, I think it's a matter of priority. I think China doesn't choose to spend its money on supercharging their military, on hyper focusing on their military might. They have defensive positions overall, and they want to have regional dominance. But having said that, they would rather build sick, infrastructure projects like the new dam that they want to build. It's like significantly larger than the Three Gorges Dam. It's stuff like that. China has more ships than us already. We still have more tonnage, but that's eroding too. Okay, but I'm talking about something more than simply ships. China has now more surface ships than the U.S. China is building at a rate of 6 destroyers a year compared to U.S.'s 2 destroyers a year. I don't, guys, and I think Elent News will agree with me on this. In terms of the Navy, he's probably referring to China now building at a capacity of 6 destroyers a year, and the U.S. builds 2. They are now the largest Navy in terms of ship numbers. The Navy doesn't simply operate on the pure number of ships. It's infinitely more complex than that. You also have to have a steady supply chain that is refueling and refeeding munitions into your Navy, no matter where you are in the world. Like America's capabilities in terms of America's military capabilities are I think so far more advanced than the Chinese military. It's not even, and I say this as a China glazer, like America currently has a capability to be anywhere around the world and deploy anywhere around the world, like an insane number of troops. China does not have that. America has 800 military bases that we know of. China has 2. 800 foreign military bases that we know of. This does not include the secret bases that we do not know of. The logistics is important, and the U.S. has a monopoly on allied ports and refueling for sure. Although China is building a large logistics fleet, but you are correct, the U.S. is far ahead right now in terms of deployment capability. Exactly. The U.S. Navy can't even defeat the Houthis, though. See, that's the other part of this problem, because, like, no matter how mighty your military is, obviously, unless you do full tilt genocide and just, like, nuke a place, it's going to be quite difficult if you have an enemy that is resilient and refuses to give up. So there's also that aspect of this conversation as well. But that goes for China, too. It's not like you think if the American military can't defeat the Ansar Allah movement's efforts in blocking the Red Sea, you think the Chinese military is going to be able to do that? No, they can't. It's just there is a level of permissible violence that you can't go above. And, America, it keeps bombing these places, and so does Israel. But ultimately, You can't overcome a group of resilient people that have their own manufacturing capabilities and have allegiances with a regional superpower that is, giving them arms. And when I say genocide, I'm talking about like more than what Saudi Arabia and UAE did in Yemen. I'm talking like straight up nuking Yemen, like nuking Sanaa, like just nuking it, dropping a mini nuke or something. Bro, I hear that. And yet America never won a single war since World War II. No, that's what I'm saying. That's why I'm saying that this is not how, that's not how this works, is what I mean. Do you not understand? My point is, it doesn't really, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how mighty your military or how powerful your military is either. Look at the dynamic in Gaza. Okay? These dudes are using bathtub rockets against one of the most powerful militaries in the region that is backed by the most powerful country on the planet with unlimited munitions. And they've dumped multiple nukes worth of munitions in a densely populated area, killing hundreds of thousands of civilians. And yet, according to recent reports by Charles Lister and many others, Hamas's numbers are back to the same place that they were pre-October 7. All they've done is endlessly recruit a new crop of people who have been recently orphaned. That said, I think you will be very surprised by China's capability in any war, particularly its ballistic missile, naval, and air force power projection around the Pacific. Yeah, no, I'm saying that their military activity is specifically regional. America's military might is global. That's what I was stating. Like they have the reason why they have such a strong emphasis on their own Navy is specifically because they're gearing up to protect their own backyard. Part of the reason why they went into developing nukes was also for that same reason. If you recall, when Xi Jinping sat across from Joseph Robinette Brandon, he very clearly stated that they would dial back their nuclear arms program if America didn't continue to arm Japan with long-range missiles. And of course, we know what happened there. I mean, Japan is still full-scale militarizing once again. Hasanabi, very bad guy. Russia, best country in the whole world. Suka bliat.
Focused on climate change, not building ships in lethality. Mr. Hegseth, if your Secretary of the Navy ends up focusing on climate change more than shipbuilding and lethality, will you commit to me to fire him?
My Secretary of the Navy, should I be confirmed, sir, will not be focused on climate change in the Navy, just like the Secretary of the Air Force won't be focused on LG-powered fighter jets, or the Secretary of the Army will not be focused on electric-powered tanks.
Let me ask,
We're going to be focused on lethality and defeating our enemy.
I do find it really funny that these guys think that like the initiatives being made like this, I don't even know how much emphasis there is on this, but like the initiatives in this regard are being done not to improve operational capacity, but instead because of woke. Like you have to be a complete moron to think that like the American government, I mean, look, I've listened to Mark Milley complain about how America's procurement strategies are actually kind of outdated in comparison to what Palmer Luckey could do, and how tech should play a more formative role in defense. Okay, it's legitimately terrifying to hear guys like this talk about accelerating American R&D in the field of battle. And there are definitely a lot of pre-existing checks that I guess, slow down this process. Having said that, however, any sort of initiative made is 100% to improve combat readiness, and not because they want to be woke.
And I appreciate that. The other thing President Biden did, his first executive order as president, was to focus on transgender surgeries for active duty troops. This is all I'm describing the woke military here under Biden over the last 4 years. If confirmed and you issue an order saying we are going to rip the Biden woke yoke off the neck of our military and focus on lethality and warfighting, how do you think the troops will react?
Senator, I know the troops will rejoice.
They will love it.
They will love it. And we've already seen it in recruiting numbers. There's already been a surge since President Trump won the election of recruiting. The Army says
do you think our military will
surpass its
and our military
goals.
will follow that order?
Our military.
Yeah, that's what was stopping people from joining the military. How woke it is. Bro, they're going to start drafting people. I swear to God. Oh, my God.
Military will follow that order, Senator. Gladly, because they want to focus on lethality and warfighting and get all the woke, political prerogative, politically correct, social justice, political stuff out of the military.
Okay. All right. Will the Bernie interview be on this channel? Yes. In 5 minutes, I will be talking to Senator Bernard Sanders. Okay. I'll just say this much. Okay. I'll say this.
Same time.
As one of the last things I want to point to before we get to our conversation with Senator Bernard Sanders. A lot of you have called me old for being 33 years old. Many of you youngins are going to be feeling the pain when that draft kicks in. Okay? Maybe age will be a virtue in the upcoming years when we go to battle.